So let's begin with the AM news now. And he was facing serious jail time accused of stealing, leading to the collapse of Capital Bank that left hundreds with locked up funds and even more without jobs. Atuesian, who founded the bank, had fought the charges for 3 years, insisting he's innocent. But it turned out in court on Thursday that a day before an Accra High Court would seal his fate, Mr. Atuesian managed to convince state prosecutors to accept a settlement agreement with that will see him escape jail and rather pay 30 million cedis now, 60 million cedis later. But the judge rejected the deal, slamming state prosecutors and insisting they appeared compromised. The judge was clear the settlement was simply a bad deal for all who lost monies and affected by the collapse of that bank. My colleague Kojo was in court and has more in this report.
The presiding judge, Justice Che Balfour, couldn't hide his dissatisfaction at the time of events. He was supposed to deliver his judgment on Thursday, but he says the court was served with a document detailing an agreement reached between the state and Atuesian, the founder of Capital Bank. In the agreement, William Atuesian was to pay 30 million Ghana cedis, while the remaining amount was to be paid in 2 installments, but the judge disagreed with the settlement. He referred to Section 35 of the Court Act, which he says relates to an offence that has caused economic loss or damage to the state, but in the instant case, the funds belong to the shareholders and not the state. Justice Che Balfour also stated that the offer and acceptance by the two parties based on Section 35 of the Court Act should be subject to the concurrence of the court, and in the instant case, the court does not agree to the proposed settlement between the two parties. According to the judge, even if it were agreed to the proposed settlement by the two parties, Mr. William Atuesian should be made to pay the agreed amount in the current exchange rate with interest and not paying the same amount which has devalued. He indicated that it must not be done for it to appear that the accused has outweighed the prosecution, and that will not be full restitution but a partial one. The judge wondered that after 3 years of deployment of state resources, if the accused and the Republic would come to such a settlement, then it would have been a waste of time and resources of the state. Deputy Attorney General Alfred Fianyeboa, who represented the state together with other state attorneys, says they will comply with what the court has said, but their intention was to recover the lost monies to the state.
It's within the right of the judge to either accept or reject. Because looking at Section 35, even the parties agree, it's subject to satisfaction of the court. And the judge's wisdom has realized that there's a need to look at 1 or 2 issues. So you see nothing wrong with the judge trying to assert his authority as a judge in the case.
The judge basically said that this was a bad deal. Couldn't you have gotten something better?
Oh, it's a matter of negotiation. And you know, if you're looking at a case involving an accused person and the person makes a proposal, you also look at the proposal, consider, because let's take it. If you take a matter to court, it doesn't mean automatically you're going to have whatever that you are supposed to have. You need to bargain. We came to 90 million, but they just said if there's a need to up it or do something extra, we have no problem with it because it's a duty of the judge to scrutinize agreements reached by parties.
So you are now going back to the negotiation team?
Yeah, we are looking at the ruling. Perhaps we may go back or we may leave it to the judge to decide.
The judge made a very profound statement that if you'd allowed him to have given his judgment, he would have probably convicted the accused person. He would have gotten whatever he wanted. Why didn't you go through that process? I
think the judge's wisdom decided to adjourn. He made a proposal for the adjournment to the 8th. He later came to the 13th. So it's within his wisdom because we never prayed for an adjournment. Because after we would have said he was ready to deliver the judgment and we would have taken it like that. But he said he wanted to adjourn for the parties to consider the agreement again. We are not in any way aggrieved by the ruling by the judge. But that's
in all these things, the AG has been stating that he wants to ensure that money that the state owes gets it back. Is this all part of the plan?
Yes, in fact, that's the plan. Because you have instances where people have been convicted involving huge sums of money. They are sentenced, they go to prison, they say they have not recovered anything, we lose. So at times, if you are bargaining, there's a possibility that you can recover something, you need to also take a step. I stated somewhere at the last month that in all this banking crisis, our idea is to prosecute and if possible, recover. If there's a possibility of recovering, as in the instant case, if the judge agrees with us, then we have to go along that route.
The judge talked about timing, and we know that sometime within the trial, the accused person had indicated that he wanted to refund some amount of money. Why has it taken this long?
It is true. The accused started making the offers to the Attorney General's office long ago, but we were not comfortable or agreeable to the figures that he was proposing. So that's why it took him all this while up to the last point of the prosecution. And we never relented in our effort to prosecute the accused persons. Despite the overtures that the first accused person made to us, we continued to prosecute the case. We got to the end of the case. Then he brought in this last minute proposal which we thought was quite reasonable, but of course subject to satisfaction of the court. So the first accused especially, didn't start his negotiation yesterday. He's been coming and then going, but it's rather maybe to his benefit that the last proposal that he made we accepted.
Should we expect a better deal on the 13.2?
We are going to look at the figures again. Then we look at the options again. Two things. Either we have a better one or we drop the whole thing for the judge to proceed with the matter and then we look at where the ask falls.
The court adjourned proceedings to the 13th of December for the parties to convince the court on the issues that have been raised. William Atuesian, Reverend Fijilad Odonko, and Teteneti, a former managing director of MC Management Service owned by Mr. Asian, were charged with 23 counts of conspiracy to stealing from 620 million liquidity support given to the bank by the Bank of Ghana.
Now, despite the low turnout in chamber, some MPs are still sharing their views on the budget presentation. Member of Parliament for Wa East, Godfred Sedu Jasau, says the budget does not present any hope to farmers and players in the agri sector.
And in reading through, I didn't see the kind of aggressive responses that I was hoping to see. To be honest with you, I've read through the budget, and it appears is the same focus sectors: crop sector, cocoa, mechanization, irrigation. And when you read through all the paragraphs, you don't see anything that is responding to the quagmire that we have found ourselves in. You don't see anything aggressive that is transformational. You see, the budget is hinged on a 7-point agenda. One of them is boosting, that's the third one, boosting local adaptive capacity, local productive capacity. So when I saw that theme, I was excited. I said, wow, okay, so I'm going to have to see some transformational direction and provisions in this budget statement that will be able to drive a transformation agenda so that we can do a lot of production and put this country back on the path of growth.
Now, MP for Gomwa West, Richard Jan Mensah, is calling on government to immediately remove some taxes from the petroleum price build-up to cushion the ordinary Ghanaian.
This is where government gets foreign exchange, that is cocoa, gold, and then crude oil. You can see clearly that over the period, the prices have even gone up. And that is where I have always made a call that at least government should look at the extra gains we are making from this area to cushion the ordinary Ghanaian. And one clear area that I've always called on is at least the prices of petroleum products. Because we have taxes in the petroleum build-up. We have special petroleum tax, which was introduced in 2014, somewhere November 2014. But then the world international price of petroleum product had gone down, the crude oil. So Ghana, as an exporter of petroleum product, our budgeted amount for crude, we're not going to meet the target. So we brought in this tax just to cushion us. But this time, the prices are way above our projections.
Now, for his part, MP for Akwetia Henry Boache Yadom has been lamenting the freeze on employment into the public and civil service announced in the 2023 budget.
For the sectors, I would say it's not helpful at all. Looking at the tax components that they have imposed on some of goods and services, and then also looking at the unemployment rate. Now, if you look at even the public sector, Ghana population is close to 32 million. And then by looking at figures that was mentioned in the public sector, it's less than 1 million. So 700 to 800,000 people, which is very low. And again, government is not going to employ public sector employees. So that's another challenge, in the sense that if those are not employed, what do we expect them to do? It gives a sense of security danger as well as a country.
Let's still stay in Parliament because the minority in Parliament say they cannot wait any longer to vote to decide the fate of embattled Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. The NDC MPs filed a censure motion against the minister, which was referred to an ad hoc committee, which has since last week presented its report to the House. The business statement presented for next week had nothing on the censure motion, but NDC MP for Tamale North, Al-Hassan Suhini, has been lamenting the seeming lack of action on the censure motion.
The Speaker, going through the order paper for this week. The Speaker, going through the order paper for this week, one motion that featured prominently is, I think, even on the order paper for today, motion 17, that this Honourable House adopts the report of the ad hoc committee on the motion of censure against the Honourable Minister of Finance, Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta. Mr. Speaker, going through the business for next week, this very important motion that many citizens and non-citizens with interest in our economy are very expectant of, does not find space. Yes, does not find space in the business statement that has been presented. I do appreciate that, Mr. Speaker, that we'll have extended sittings and it will begin on Monday. The debate is still underway, but the debate ends on Tuesday, Mr. Speaker, and that is a debate on the policy statement. The motion that we are currently debating will end on Tuesday.
Now, Minority Leader Harun Adrusu criticized the Majority Leader for failing to schedule the censure motion. The Constitution provides that a censure motion must be debated and voted on within 14 days of the motion being filed. It has been 28 days since it was filed. Minority Leader is worried.
The outstanding motions of censure, one pursuant to Article 82, and the other two, Article 82, in respect of the Finance Minister and the Health Minister. Mr. Speaker, if we are not able to take them today, we will assume rightly that they are to be deferred to be part of the business next week. And therefore, you must accordingly direct the chairman of the business and the business committee to take note. And then, particularly on the motion of censure in respect of the Finance Minister, the words in Article 82 does not give Parliament perpetuity to discuss the matter. We are within defined time limits to consider the motion and take decision as appropriate. So whatever committee has been set up, we need to bring closure to it. I'm aware that it may be an exercise in failure if I don't get the cooperation of the majority, because they are now backtracking, Mr. Speaker.
But Deputy Majority Leader Alexander Afenyo-Markin has been describing the censure motion as a failed motion, which is dead on arrival. He has been reiterating that the motion will not get any support from the majority side.
This is a house that respects rules and procedure. And he knows that this house did not hesitate in making referral to a committee, a referral that the minority opposed and were not in support, but reluctantly accepted. Mr. Speaker, the whole of Ghana watched the evidence they led. The whole of Ghana watched the evidence they led. And the whole of Ghana listened to the finance minister on the so-called allegations, to the extent that the committee unanimously dropped 2 of the grounds. Mr. Speaker, we've read the report. Mr. Speaker, the report would come before the House. Nobody is against the process. So he shouldn't create any impression.
Now, the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbin, has disclosed that some African countries are being run by terrorists, and that is a threat to Ghana. Speaking at the launch of the Center for African Diplomacy and Global Engagement, he explained the adverse effects of COVID-19 have been intensified by the Russian-Ukrainian war, which, amongst other factors, compromises Ghana's security. There is more in the following report.
The Center for African Diplomacy and Global Engagement has been established to provide scholarly research and training as well as promote diplomacy as the best approach to solving global problems. In his address, the director and lead researcher, Lord Marco Yevuga, said the center also aims to promote public engagement in global policy.
Motivations for this center is the fact that in our country, there's a limited discussion about global issues. I mean, if you look at our national discussions, we don't have that depth when it comes to international affairs. And I think that it's very important that as a country that started the African liberation struggle by Kwame Nkrumah, we cannot forget where we were coming from. So we need to become globally engaged, particularly given that we live in a globalized world, and whatever happens elsewhere have implications for us here, as you've seen with the COVID and the Russia-Ukraine. But the discussions in the country before and after have not been sufficient. So if you have a center like this, then we can create a forum, a platform for people to come together, exchange ideas. Then we can also do research and feed government about global issues so that we are not taken by surprise as we did with COVID and Russia.
The Speaker of Parliament, Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagman, warns that Ghana is at risk of terrorism due to the Russia-Ukraine war.
The theme for today could not have been more appropriate, given the ravaging effects of COVID-19 on the global economy over the past 3 years. Time will fail me if I am to list the businesses destroyed by reason of the prolonged long lockdowns, the inequalities arising as a result, the astronomical increases in the debt burdens of nations, especially those in the global south, the disruption of the academic calendar and its related impact on the well-being of humanity, and further issues such as gender, among many others. These have undoubtedly been exacerbated by the Russia-Ukraine war.
In other news, Municipal Chief Executive for Nandom, Raymond Nero, has called on the people, especially traders, not to hide under the cloak of the economic challenges that the country is experiencing to increase prices of commodities. He said the continuous increment of price of goods is further worsening the economic conditions of the people and urged them to put a stop to it. Raymond Nero made the call at the 40th annual general meeting of the Nandom Rural Bank in Nandom. Joining us is Upper West Regional Correspondent Rafik Salam report from Nandom.
The Nandom Rural Bank PLC was established in 1981 as a unibank operating in a single room with few staff, numbering 5. The bank has since then grown and strategically expanded into other districts and municipalities such as the Wa Municipal, Lamuse, Sasala West, Wa East, Wa West districts, and headquartered in Nandom with staff numbering 58. Nandom Municipal Chief Executive Raymond Nero paid glowing tribute to the founding fathers of the bank for the various roles played in the establishment of the bank. Raymond Nero noted that economies all over the world has been going through some challenges as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine war, and Ghana not an exception, which has thus led to the disruption of the global supply chain and the banking sector, not spared either of the negative consequences. He stated that government has however not laid back on the issue as it is currently negotiating with the International Monetary Fund, IMF, to restore macro stability in the country, and is hopeful that the situation will normalize soon.
In times of difficulties, the pessimist sees problems, but the optimist sees opportunities. I therefore urge the board and management of the bank not to be pessimistic in the current economic challenges, but to spot growth opportunities in the country. I implore all of you to continue to rally behind us and also do your best to ensure the realization of our collective and individual goals. Those of you with businesses are particularly advised not to take advantage of the situation to astronomically increase the prices of goods and services services. Those without businesses should continuously advise the business people to be measured in their decisions regarding the pricing of goods and services, so as not to make the system unbearable for us.
Board chairman of the London Rural Bank, Femino Bejiro Asoyiri, reveals that in spite of the difficult economic challenges in the country, the bank maintained a very strong financial position, which has reflected in increasing performance across the key financial indicators.
For the period, that's 2021, the bank investment portfolio increased from 19 million 750,000 in 2020 to 22.35 million in 2021. And the bank is gradually moving away from government bills and banks to concentrate on a small mandate of lending, since lending has the potential of developing the economy within our cabinet area. Total assets as at the end of December grew from 31,270,000 to 34,520,000. Year-on-year growth as at a rate of 10.39%. So that the bank recorded positive in all the areas of its balance sheet. I think our auditors are here. When they read this, you will see it.
The Wire branch manager of ARB Apex Bank, Michael Nyako, assures rural and community banks in the country of their partnership in developing innovative and tailor-made products to satisfy their customers.
A team from Apex Bank, together with the agency banking project consultant, has been on a road show to some countries to help learn from best practices to help in a seamless launch and execution of the agency banking project. As we have always said, although other banks in the countries have already introduced agency banking, this is the first of its kind in our sector, and we shall do everything to ensure that we bring the best agency banking experience to our esteemed customers.
Chief Executive Officer of the London Rural Bank PLC, Masoud Zakaria Dombo, spoke of the various awards won by the bank, including the best profitable bank in Ghana. Reporting for Joy News, Rafik Salam, Nandom.
And that's how we wrap up the AM News here on the Joy News channel. Up next, AM Show continues. My name is Samuel Kojo. Please do stay with us. Good morning.